introduced to our environments. So now what is steganography? It's just a practice of concealing a file or message, or even be it video, PDF, or whatever, inside another message or another media file or any other file. You know, digital file, one digital file inside another. So now this is totally different from cryptography. Those are two different things. Cryptography, well, we know that the information is there, but then we are kind of hiding it. Not hiding it just per se, we're encrypting it. You can see that it's like maybe you see that this is a door, but then it's locked. You see, you can't exactly what you can't open. That's the kind of thing you need to first decrypt, right? But then with steganography, it's we're putting a door in plain sight, but then you cannot see it. So we're just we're hiding stuff in plain sight. So that's the thing. That is steganography. So for best security practices, usually where possible, we recommend that you use steganography and cryptography. In some other areas, you choose what may seem to be okay with you. So now the types that are there, we can hide information from image files, you know. So from images, we can then we can then hide we can hide files. So sometimes what actually happens is in image files, sometimes it will be there, but then you need to zoom in deeper, or you need to look at the binaries. I'm sure Tatenda, you're familiar with them, or if you're not, don't worry, we're going to have a lab session as we promised, and then you actually get to see what these are and how you play around with them. And then also even inside audio files. Now this is interesting. How will it be in audio files? Well, you'll be listening to your favorite, you know, music artist, whether be it Jay-Z or whatever, but then there may be somewhat encrypted message inside. That's the audio files or even text files. Sometimes you can be reading a message or even a tweet. Yeah, mainly they love it for even tweets. You know, you can be reading a tweet, but then inside that tweet, there's an encrypted message there. And other types, PDF files and all the other files that are there. So now we'll quickly go into the lab session because we think this is the interesting part. You know, when we kind of mention these things, they might make a bit of sense, but then when you're now actually doing them in the lab, then it gets more interesting. So that's where we'll start. So confirm now you can see the webinar window. Welcome, Brian. Okay, powerful. So now we'll just start with the first simple one. So the first simple one that we're going to talk about is stringer. So this picture, please unmute your mic and try and let me know if you can see it.
Yes, I can see it.
You can see the picture?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So you see when you zoom in, this is just a picture of this guy, right? But then there's actually a hidden message for us in there. So sometimes you can zoom and then you actually see it, but that's highly unlikely. Of course, it happens once in a while, but it's highly unlikely for that to happen. Usually what we'll do, we'll just go into our terminal. So I'm a Linux fan. I use Windows mainly for playing games, but it's also okay.
Bro, we play online. Windows sucks.
So we'll start with stringer. So what we're going to do with stringer, we're going to use Vim is just a text editor, or you can open images, you know, using text editors. Of course, you can open them using your default image viewers and stuff. But then now I want to look at the binaries, because now when we saw that picture, we're not actually we're not like getting in. We're not seeing anything that we want. So now we want to open it actually and see what's really inside the picture. So now from this one, well, there's a bunch of binary and all, but then now after, you know, some of this, it might not make sense. So sometimes when you look at it, when you are looking for that flake, uh, you see that, well, this is not making sense. And then at the end, you'll see, for now, this is the flake that we're looking for. So this one, these are entry level stuff. I think these are the most basic that you can come across. Or after the zooming one, sometimes they can give you the one for zooming, but then this one is one of the other basic ones that you can come across. So that's just about this one. That's how you would go on to get the flake on this one. And then now the binaries, if you would want to see them. Now we are in hex mode. So sometimes, well, you'll go on to see what your hex files, right? And then you see it's just a bunch, since it's an image, remember, these are just pixels. So they will not make a lot of sense to us. So hence this information, can you confirm if you are seeing the information that I'm highlighting here?
Yes. Yes, I can see it.
Can anyone see this?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So now, well, at least except for the last part of flick, that's the visible part. But for an image, it's expected that you would see a bunch of just some information that won't really make sense. It's not in readable form. Well, to most people, if I say it to everyone, I'll be lying. So we'll then move on to the next picture. So we can also we'll talk about the, so we had said also that in steganography you can embed files. So you can embed like be it zip files or PDF inside other files. So now, for example, we'll just look at this picture walk. I'm sure you can see that these are just trees, right? It's just a road, almost straight road going there, deeper there. So these are just trees. But then from inside this, so the beauty of steganography, really, for someone, an ordinary person, you know, if I just give you this picture and you look at it, you can't really say that there is something that you may want inside, right? So now we are going to look at it inside. You know, there are some tools that you will use for steganography to just see, to just inspect if a file is there's some information. So normally I don't like relying on one tool, but then for the purposes of time, we don't need to go around tools that don't work. We'll just use the ones that work. So, well, there are, in security, we have challenges whereby we call them capture the flag, whereby we are finding, we tell you that maybe we have a hidden message in this image. So your task is just to find it. So basically these we are kind of having a walkthrough on a CTF challenge, but then on CTF challenges, we are mainly looking at the steganography part, right? So this image, I'll quickly go into the terminal and then we just inspect it using pinwalk. So when we inspect it using pinwalk, from this we can tell that it's a JPG image, right? Even from the file extension, we have looked at it, and then also it's a TIFF image. It's saying there is TIFF image data in there, and then there's also a gzip compressed data file. So now for some image files, I think if I'm not mistaken, now it's PNG. If I'm not confusing the two, PNG, it should be the one way. Even if sometimes you may actually go on and inspect the file, but then when you do inspect it, you'll see that it will tell you that there are zip files. There's a zip file inside. So sometimes it might not necessarily be that. Why I'm saying that, because it's the way that the information inside a PNG file will be arranged. So it will be in a format similar to zip files. So then you may think that you have actually got something to take you closer to your, you know, your final place, your Canon. So sometimes it might not necessarily be that, but in this case, we'll just go on and try and extract the zip file, because for now, we have not yet extracted it. So the command for Pinwalker, the one that I'll use, it's D for extracting, right? For extracting a gzip file, and then you'll specify that you want a gzip file. And then from there it will process, and then after that, if you just check, you realize that we have a new folder now. Here, work. I'm hoping that you can see this. So we'll just go inside and then check what is actually in that folder. So this tool is very nice because now what it does for us, it will automatically, like, we have the zip file, but already look at it next to it has a file that has already been extracted. So for the purposes of time, we don't need to decompress the zip file because it has already done that for us. So instead, we'll just go through and just check our zip file, what is actually inside, and it has no extension. So usually it might be binary. So we'll just open it with what? With our text editor, Vim in this case. And then now, well, this is a bunch of information, but then now they are telling us that this is the flag, right? But then it's in two different bases. So I'm sure maybe once in a while you might have come across base 64. There's base 64 encoding. So in this case, when you look at it, actually what happens with base 64, if you look at the numbers here, if you can actually get a closer look at it, let me try and zoom in once more. All right. So when we're looking at the flag, we'll see that, and it starts at T1. Sorry, I'll go back there just now. It starts with T1. So with T1J, so for base 64, you realize that the numbers, it has smaller numbers, 0, 1, up to, and the other big numbers, 9 and everything. So this one, well, sometimes if you're not sure with these, you just research a bit about them. But then these ones, they've already told you that they encoded twice using bases. So we'll just go on and we'll use base 64 in this case. So we'll just use our base 64 decoder there, decoder. All right. So when we paste that, and we actually decode, I'm sure you are seeing this screen. When we have decoded it, so from there now, if you look at this string now, we have 2 that I've highlighted here. And then this is the smallest number that I'm seeing. So for base 32, there is base 32 actually. And then, you know, binary, it's base 2, right? And then the decimal one is base 10. So we have other types of encoding. This one now, the output that we got, it's base 32. So we're just going to go on and decode that one so that we get the actual flag. So when we actually decode it, you'll see that this is the flag. So this is what flags, some of them, they look like this. Some flags, they do look like this. So this is the stuff. So now, also, there are some steps that you take when you're encoding them. You know, it's not that easy. Of course, you know, when you get to see on TV and then they just show you hacking, someone just fires up a terminal, and then maybe if it was command prompt, and then you just run through, and then you see a bunch of those directories and stuff, or this directory here, and then you think, okay, this is hacking, it's very fast. Well, it's not exactly that fast. That is just show business. So we have got our other flag. So I'll just rush through these ones, and then I will leave one, the one that I'll leave, and then we'll go back to it also, because we'll need it to emphasize on some other things. So now here we have done flags for 2. Okay, let me just clear the terminal, and then so we have done flags for stringer bell, and what? And walk, we've done it. So now, the other one that we have now a text file. So really, what does it actually look like? So that's the file oak1, what it actually looks like. You see, when you're looking at this doesn't make sense, right? So we talked about encoding, because remember what we want, it's in plain sight. Of course, if someone just looks at this, for some people, if it was me maybe 10 years ago, I would just close the terminal, right? Because I'm thinking this is probably useless stuff. But then from this, it's in plain sight actually, but then I think it's useless. That's the whole thing with steganography. Because what happens is we are seeing stuff, but then it doesn't really capture your attention, right? You're just saying, okay, so what's extraordinary about this thing? So now we're just going to go over now this one and just try decoding it and see what we actually get from there, right? So you see the steps that we're taking so that we actually decode something. It's the person. If I was hiding information, of course I'm hiding it in plain sight, but then you just try and take some efforts, so that it's not that it's kind of hidden in a way, although you think it's useless. And then the other thing that actually does happen is that this is just encoding. It's not, we are not encrypting here. We're just decoding. We're not encrypting anything here, right? So you see what we're getting, the exclamation marks and then the question marks, right? So from this, when we look at this, well, if you come across this, of course, if it's the first time doing such a challenge, you need to research, right, on what it might be. So now we're just doing it in a quick manner, so that since our time is limited, you get to have a feel of what really will be happening, in these sessions, what exactly is happening behind, what they don't really show us in TV, because I'm sure this stuff, well, they wouldn't really show you this on TV. I mean, it's not that interesting, right? So they will not show you that kind of information there. So now we've executed this one, and then this was the flag, ZimCTF. Well, yeah. So this was the flag for this challenge. So now we are seeing that if you can check, from what we thought it was useless to this, so now to this here, from this, you see that we're actually getting something. There is a hidden message, but then it was in plain sight because it was not encrypted, right? So we are thinking this is useless, but then for me, if it's meant for me, then I know that, okay, I have to kind of decrypt it in a way, or even if it's not meant for me, but I come across it, I'll be very happy to just try it out and see what's inside, right? So that's the thing. We've just got our flag. And then now, if you have any questions, please, I'm welcome to messages and stuff. If you have questions, you can just raise your hand and ask. So now we'll move on to, we've covered walk, we've covered the text file. So we have covered the string appeal, right? And then now we're left with what? With media files, the web files, music. I think mainly, even if you play them with, be it Linux or Windows, maybe once in a while you have come across such music files. So now what I'll simply do, we'll start with T1, right? So I'll just play it, and then you get to have a feel of what it will be like. Of course, this is very small, right? It's just a small file, but then I'll just play it. So this is like, now this is T2. So from this, you can actually feel that there is no message exactly. Like, it's not making sense, right? I'm sure even in your music player, you probably delete this because it doesn't make sense. But then now there is something that there is a message that is actually there, right? So we're just going to go over and actually see, because we believe that security is actually seeing what's there. So now I've opened Sonic Visualizer. It's just an open source software. Can you confirm if you can actually see the screen? Sonic Visualizer.
Yes, I can see it.
Powerful. So now I'll just start a new session, and then I'll just open our file. So we'll just start with T1 that we had played. So now from actually seeing this, this is what we are seeing, right? And then even if, you know, were to play this, the sound is still bad, right? Like, we're not getting anything that really makes a lot of sense from this. So let's just zoom in and see what this waveform has for us, if it actually has anything for us. So just zoom in and check our waveform. Okay, so we are seeing that this doesn't make sense, right? But then now let's try and just go over it and just add a spectrogram. Now we are seeing there's something called a, what's that there? Let me just zoom in a bit. So it's not that clear, but then it says, as far as I can read, it's saying it's a secret password. So now we're actually seeing something. So you can actually see that you can send me a ton of messages, you know, from maybe different clips or even a song. Actually, you can embed this information on other media files, you know. So as we are saying, this is just for demonstration purposes here. So now there's been embedded there a secret password is the flag, or is the message in this case, right? So this is the thing. So for this one, that's what we're getting, and then we'll also check another one again. So for some of them, the procedures will be different. For some, it's the same, right? So I know we don't need to say this for now. And then we'll just start a new session. And then we'll open another file now. Now in this case, we'll look at T2. Okay. Okay, my visualizer just shut down there. Let me try and go back to it and see what is actually happening. All right, it's now back on. All right, so this one, the message is kind of a bit long, but then if we also play it, so at first I searched. The first time I came across this, I searched, and then I got, you know, some pictures showing some, you know, visuals, like how words it it gets to match up with, like, when you pronounce some words, they do get to match up with what you are. If you say something, right, uh, the way you pronounce on a waveform. Well, I thought maybe I'll get something, maybe a word that will match with this, but then I tried and tried for hours, and then after some time, and then if we were to just go over it, you know, of course, when you actually get the challenge, it won't be that simple, right? But then now, when we're now looking at this, you see now we have our message. Then now you see me. So now this was just another challenge. It's just a walkthrough. You can actually see that, well, messages can really be embedded in what, in media files. So this is steganography. This is the thing that we're talking about. So now this thing, of course, now the way we've just shown it, it seems it seems to have nothing really to do with web applications, right? It seems that well, those are just the messages that were there. But what does it have to do with web applications? And why we actually chose that? Okay, this thing is not new because remember, uh, even from long ago, I'm sure there were methods. It was actually first checked in. If you were to research about it a bit, I think the first time it was used and documented was around 1944, 1949. I've forgotten about that. Well, it should be between those 2 years, actually. So now, remember last year, it was sometime in 2018. They were saying that Google user content, the pictures that we search on Google and download, some of them, malware was embedded in it, you know, steganography. So that's why we just thought, okay, well, let's do this because now we realize that as part of our community, we are also we are understand that there are people who are not developers. Some of them are developers who come from all different fields, right? So from others who are looking at this as at a user's endpoint, and then for others at a developer's endpoint, and others, you know, security professionals, right? So now we're saying if you were to just download a picture and then there's malware embedded there in that picture, what would happen? You know, because depending on the message that you'll have actually put on that picture for it to actually do something, right? Certain actions will take place. Maybe be it sending me information about you, you know, from your browser or whatever that you use, connect to the internet, then actually emails me. So now on Google, some of them on some of those websites where we get the information. Because remember, if you were to actually see these the extension names, right? The extension names, they're just usual files that we use. JPG, we open JPG images on our phones, internet, wherever, you know, every day, right? And then now, so we have those. Nothing looks weird from those, but then we are saying information can be embedded in those, so we need to be careful. So now, where we are getting it really, uh, we are saying where we download information, we need to try and download from secure places. We try and see that the websites, they are secure, and also when we're developing, we actually try and find ways to try and avoid that. If this information, you know, if maybe there's a picture with malware, I try and avoid as much as I can. Of course, you, I can't really say you'll be 100% immune, but then the best that you can do is at least try. Then you have a chance, right? So now the solution proposal that I have, it was uploading. You scan all uploads and downloads, you know, for embedded files, because you can actually embed some, you know, some metadata in images, right? Be it JPG images, there's metadata in there, right? So you can what? You can embed that information there. So you can't trust any website or even anyone. Don't be naive. It can happen. And even databases, right? So we see that for most of our developers, well, some that I've come across, some that I've come across even on organizations, some of their systems. Well, I realized, you know, some time ago that they were actually putting images and what images and other information, maybe your credentials on the same table on the database. But then the thing is, I can embed SQL queries to get your information and actually perform other things besides, you know, depending on the information that I want to get, right? Because it's all about information at the end of the day. So I can then, if I get it, then I can use it for different things. Maybe I can be you for one day, you know, just yeah, identity theft might be cool for some of us. No, I'm just you get the idea though, right? You know. So now we are saying we want to try and avoid those things because the challenge is mainly the methods that we use on our web applications when we're uploading. We rarely scan for viruses or even malware. We rarely scan for that kind of information. We just upload images and then we let people download. So when they're uploading and downloading, and also, you know, some of them, for example, I'll just demonstrate with this way, our lab was actually preparing a lab, but then it's not yet done. So from this, actually, if someone was just to check, now I'm supposed to upload a picture, right? But then I'll just go ahead and upload the HTML file. Let's see what actually happens. It uploads. Everything is okay, right? Okay, let me upload a picture then. So I just want to upload the picture, and then I go back to the HTML file, and then I emphasize what I want. So this is now the image, right? And then now I can view the image. Okay. So, okay, sorry about this. All right. So now let me just, so some of them are web applications, we don't validate the information that we're actually uploading. You just allow users to upload, use extensions, but then sometimes I can just change the extension name and then temper around with it a bit, and then it works. Well, this image here on the icon is not loading, right? But then when I decide to view, can you actually see that now it has opened a link here? It has now opened a link to Facebook. Or Facebook, I just put Facebook, right? Because we don't want to do malicious stuff here on this session. So we're just, well, Facebook is not that friendly because okay, we won't talk about that. Facebook is good. But then what we're saying, we are saying the information that people get to embed. So in this case, I just opened it so that you can actually see what can be happening. Because every time when maybe a user has uploaded information on your web page, that picture, whatever, it's busy loading, right? So when it is actually loading there, what actually happens when it's loading? Some queries, they may be performed, to the databases and everything. So some commands, they are being executed at the same time as the picture is being loaded on your web application server and your browser, right? So now, okay, before we get to questions, I talked about metadata. So some users, well, malicious users, they love to embed information in metadata, right? So we'll just have a look at what metadata actually does look like. So we'll just look at this file. So when we actually look at it, you can see that when the file names and all this, everything from here looks okay. Primary platform, Apple computer, so far this looks okay. But then now look at this message on the comment. Do you actually think that the computer where we got this image is the one that put this comment? Okay, you see, so it's what we're talking about, that actually you can embed information, right? Be it maybe your script to run, of course, we wanted to run a bit of cross-site scripting, but then our lab, there are some issues that, well, due to other commitments, we didn't manage to finish setting up our lab. So we're going to be using that lab in other upcoming sessions. So for now, we're using this. So you can see that, well, this is information that was actually embedded, right, as part of the comments. But then the picture opens and everything. When you actually look at the picture, okay, let me just open the image. So when you look at this image, everything looks normal. Even if you say properties of the image, you don't see anything. It just looks normal. That's the whole point of steganography. We want things to look really, we hide it in plain sight. It just has to look simple. And then when we're doing while we're achieving what we want to achieve at the end of the day, right? So this is basically about steganography, and then mentioning how now the malicious users, they use it to attack our environment, our web applications, and even us users. So are there any questions or contributions? You can unmute your mics and then comment if you want to.
So now we'll entertain some questions. Tatenda, do you have any questions? Do you have any hot burning questions, or do you have some additions or any queries associated with today's presentation of steganography? Okay. Yeah. It was quite an exciting presentation, Mawanda. Thanks a lot. I quite learned a lot, and it's easy. It's like you'll be seeing an innocent image, and you'll be thinking there is nothing more to it. But later you discover that it's not just an innocent image. There is a lot of information inside, hidden inside that particular image, of which yeah, it's something which is a little bit scary at the same time. It's fantastic.
All right. Can I ask? Hello.
Yes, you can ask.
Yes, we can
Yes,
hear
you can
you.
ask.
I think I've been following and I've pressed one or two, but I'd like to ask, so what's the whole point of this steganography thing? I mean, the impact, the negative impact on our website. Hello.
Sorry. Hello, sorry, I did
All
not
right.
hear you. Did you hear him, Mabanda?
Yeah, I think I heard a bit. Can you, Chatena, please confirm on your keyboard? Please write a message. You can confirm with the message. I'm sure I heard you saying what's the whole point of steganography in web applications, right?
Yeah. I mean, like the negative impact, the negative
Impact of steganography.
yeah, on our website.
All right. So now the impact on your web applications, right? What actually happens, right? I'll just go over. I'll just go back to this web application that I opened here, and then. All right. So we got a question from Tatenda, one of the audience. She had asked, "What's the importance of steganography in web applications? What are its effects?" So, in short, well, we're just going to make a small demonstration. If you had also noticed from earlier, so we're just going to demonstrate slightly on that part, and then we'll explain more on it. So here, under normal circumstances, the user is supposed to view their picture, or there will be no picture at all. But then in this instance, we had uploaded an HTML file. So now what happens when we try and view this image? Now, if you have noticed, we have been redirected to Facebook. So the Facebook page is loading there. Right. So now the challenges that we face. Now imagine on your web application, if now the user has embedded a malicious HTML file or other malicious files there, be it an image with embedded with malicious code in it. Now they can, now as the users are trying to view images of each other's profiles, or the user who is the attacker in this instance opens that image, as they know that it contains some malicious code that is embedded, then those commands will be processed, and then our web application may be hijacked, and we might risk losing some valuable information that we don't want it to be disclosed to the public. So I hope that question has been answered very well. This presentation was brought to you by Idea Today Business Tomorrow in collaboration with Wired Visuals. Thank you. See you again next week on Saturday at 9.